attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oliver Judd, and welcome to the Smart Wired webinar. I'll be your facilitator for today's meeting. Throughout the course of the webinar, you may wish to ask a question. This can be done by one of two methods. Firstly, you can click on the icon shaped like a hand. To use this method, you will need to ensure that you have your microphone switched on. At our end, we can then unmute your microphone, allowing you to ask your questions live to the webinar participants. The second option involves you typing a question in the space provided in the Questions tab. Upon receiving your question, we may either respond immediately or respond at the conclusion of the webinar. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and made available on the NECA YouTube page for later use and reference. Finally, I'd like to thank you for taking part in today's webinar. And on that note, I'll hand you over to today's presentator, Ian Milner.
Good afternoon all, and welcome. I'm glad you could join us. Obviously, this is a sort of a growing topic, smart wired, and we're also going to talk a bit about the registered cablers. The topics that we're going to actually look at, and I'll just get this. Look, our technology has already failed once. That's it. Okay. We're going to start off with why smart wired? Why do we even bother about it? Then we're going to look at the actual cabling platforms used in smart wired house. We're going to look at the compliance of smart wired program. And finally, we're going to look at what the industry is doing to help you and your business take advantage of what's happening in the market today. Okay, so I'll just quickly look at why smart wired. So just a quick slide to give you an intro. Up until today, in your typical home, you've got light and power, communications, entertainment. And the interesting thing is the communications and entertainment are actually provided through a plethora of different types of cabling systems. Coax, twisted pair, you can actually do it through your power. You've got cabling for your free-to-air. You've got cabling for your pay TV. You know, so it's quite it's different cabling for different applications, and this is now obviously slowly changing as we move forward. Today's home, just if we look at the networking side, you'll see that we actually have, you know, voice services coming in, going to your telephone through a voice for a telephone socket. That same network provides this thing called ADSL, or if you happen to have, you know, sort of Foxtel type service, you might have a cable modem, so therefore there's another entry point. The main thing is that you've actually, within the house, there's very disparate systems. Then on top of that, as we go across to the right-hand side of this particular slide, we've got pay TV, you know, provided to you, and then we've got free-to-air. Ultimately, sure, there's a bit of sharing taking place, but it's quite a disparate sort of setup that we currently have. So if we now move forward, I think you're going to move into, yeah. We can now see tomorrow's home network, where in actual fact, whether you have voice, internet, pay TV, free-to-air, everything is moving into this IP platform. So everything is going to start coming in this one ubiquitous platform. Inside the house, then, it would seem logical that the one platform could handle everything. After all, you can have communications, entertainment, energy management, security and safety, digital home health, agent-assisted living, intelligent light and power, electric vehicles, all are going to be connected to this one ubiquitous IP infrastructure, which sounds fantastic, and it is. But how do we actually support that range of functionality within the home? So let's look at what makes up the various elements within a home. So you've got communications. In communications, we're dealing with voice communications anywhere, data communications anywhere and fast. So we've got voice and data actually in the one bucket. For us, it's just the same. Text, sharing electronic directories. So you can have a directory in one phone, use it on the other phone, in your computer, on your iPads, your whatever, your tablets, okay? And also, we're seeing that communications is being integrated with entertainment, with digital home health, agent-assisted living. So this is sort of merging of services. Then if we look at entertainment, we've got in the entertainment space, we have digital TV, we have free-to-air, we have pay TV, we have IPTV, we then have digital radio, free-to-air, AP and IP. Then within the house, we can actually treat those as distributed audio, distributed video. In other words, we might have one or two sources, but distribute them throughout the house. Then we can have on-demand movies, which obviously we're now starting to access through things like Big Pond or IINet or TPG, through Fetch TV and all that sort of functionality. Then you've got interactive guides. Where and when do you want to watch things? Where do you want to move it to? So the functionality is just growing and growing. And then on top of that, you've got behind, so through the delivery mechanism to you, the home theater.
We have a question from John.
Okay. We're just going to look at a question. John, you want to just go ahead with a question, please?
Me? Can you hear me? Ian, can you hear me?
Sorry, we missed that. Can you repeat it for us if you don't mind?
Ian, can you hear me?
No, I think they
Okay, sorry, we couldn't quite get that, but if you want, if you have a chance, can you type it for us? So here we are. We have in this environment, we've looked at communications. We now look at entertainment. So this is something else. And in entertainment, we obviously have a lot of different things coming into the house. We also have access to global services. In other words, you don't just watch what's provided to you locally. Nowadays, people watch what they want to, when they want to. Then, on top of this, we now move into energy management. And energy management it's traditionally just the control of the off-peak system, which is the hot water system. This is now moving radically away because we're trying to actually control more and more devices. So what's happening now is we actually want to be able to control not only your hot water system, your air conditioning, your pool pump, but in the future even go as further as all your major appliances and even integrate with all the cogeneration type systems that can actually be put into a home. So all of these now have to start to merge. So we've got voice, we've got entertainment, we've got energy management. They're all coming together. They're all merging into the one environment into your home, which means you're going to have a degree of complexity. So therefore, in anything we do, we've got to be able to plan for all these individual elements. In addition to this, in addition to your voice and communications, your entertainment, your energy management, we then also find that more and more people are looking at security and safety. And security is not just, by the way, intrusion protection, but it could be something along the lines of smoke detectors, fire protection, fire detection. An example, for example, and I use this for an example that I have, is in my house I have smoke detectors in every single room.
Javia has a question.
Sorry, a question's come through.
Is this something that is currently
Happening in the USA.
Yep. This smart wiring is happening in the USA. They call it structured cabling. Okay, so the same type of information applies. We tend to actually have it codified slightly different, but the same thing. Coming back to my smoke detector example, I've got smoke detectors in every room. Why? Because I have kids that go into their rooms and they have electronic equipment. So if they're asleep at night and something electronic catches fire, then I'm warned, everyone's waking up. But on top of that, the smoke detector in the laundry, which is actually a heat detector, if it detects excessive heat, it actually can talk to the automation system and shut the power to the laundry because maybe we left the dryer on and that's caught fire, hence saving my house. Now these are examples of the things that can be deployed as you actually start to move into the future. So when you're looking at security, you're talking about not only just standalone intrusion, back-to-base alarm, smoke detector, but also access control, interactive security and safety, perimeter security, closed-circuit TV. So as you can see, the range of functionality offered under every single one of these elements so far is not just one element. We're also now moving into an era where we're trying to get more more and more people to actually go home as soon as possible. You know, that you want to reduce the amount of time anyone's in hospital or anyone needs to be away from the home to receive the care they need, because that's supposed to be better, healthier, psychologically more rewarding, and so on. So how do we do this? We then obviously have to be able to monitor people's vital signs. We have to be able to access your medical consultation. You've got to be able to talk to a GP and a specialist. And in doing so, yes, they're going to be able to look at your vital signs on one side, but the other end, they've got to talk to you. One of the biggest indicators of your health condition is what you look like. You only look well on a high definition signal. If you go and start doing low definition signal television or video to your GP, I can assure you your GP will not be able to detect whether in actual fact you look bad or indifferent. So they're the sort of things that are coming in. So we've now got to provide infrastructure, somehow capture what is required for providing digital home services. We then look at agent assisted. So not only are we having medical people spending more time at home, but now, can we move to the next one? Sorry, we're working with a technology that's sort of giving us a new challenge, isn't it? So with the agent assistant, we're trying to actually get people to stay at home and also support them at home, A, when they're older, and B, when they don't have their full capacities available for whatever reason. So again, we're putting in things like intercom, panic and emergency call buttons, home automation. So it actually allows people to actually stay within their homes without the difficulties of not being able to access the front door in time because it takes you time to get to your front door. It allows them to actually control the windows because they're not able to just reach the windows. It also allows them to actually deal with emergency situations in a more structured approach. But again, our participation here is providing the infrastructure to ensure all these elements come into play. We then move into intelligent light and power. So we're sort of moving away from the PowerPoint and the light as being just power and light. And what's interesting, by the way, is when we're talking about PowerPoints, we sort of think, well, why would you control a PowerPoint? But we don't know what we're going to plug into the PowerPoint in the future. How can we make sure that whatever we plug into the PowerPoint can be integrated into the decision-making of the automation system? It's part of trying to deliver not only security, safety, agent-assisted living, digital home type services, but also is providing the ambience and the environment that people want and the control they want. So nowadays, we have to consider intelligent PowerPoints. We've even got intelligent lights. We have integration between PowerPoints, lights, circuits, CCTV, and all the communication systems. So they start to talk to each other so you can actually sit in one location in your house and know that you can actually talk to someone at your front door without having to rush halfway through the house. And, if need be, give them access or deny access. So in a home, we can now control more and more elements. And some of these are obviously doors, windows, curtains, projection screens, security systems. So all this is now starting to come into play. And it is easier and easier as long as the infrastructure and the planning went into play at the beginning. We can now move into electric vehicles, and that's coming in. So we're now also planning for how do we actually allow the electric vehicle not only to come in, but potentially to ensure that A, it can be charged, B, it could potentially be an emergency power source. It's there. It's something we haven't considered. We have to consider. So what is smart wiring? Smart wiring is not a wiring platform per se, even though we're going to give you a wiring platform, but it's actually being smart about the wiring. Wiring for communications, entertainment, energy management, security and safety, digital home health, agent-assisted living, intelligent light and power, and electric vehicles. It's ensuring that the infrastructure will support the home today and into tomorrow. When do we consider a home is smart wired? A home is considered to be smart wired as per the slide when it complies with the Code of Practice for Home Wiring, which was developed by your industry, by the way. And on the next slide, you'll see we have quite a lot of players that are actually providing support to this initiative. So, we've got the likes of MBN Co, Optus, the usual Clipsal, HBM, Legrand. I say the usual because I think they support everything the industry does. okay? But not on top of that, we've got the likes of Telstra, Foxtel, Optus, and NBN Co, because they're seeing the benefit, okay, of actually being able to support a cabling system and infrastructure that allows them to deliver services into the home. So we've looked at how we had a plethora of different types of cabling systems in the home, a plethora of different technologies, and all these are converging and merging into this sort of IP environment. So the question is, what should the cabling platform be? And in the Code of Practice for Home Wiring, so if we may turn to the next slide, it says the cabling platform is defined by this document called the Code of Practice. There's a Code of Practice which actually sets the framework for then the Quick Guide to Smart Wired, which is designed as a document for you to use with your consumer, or the consumer to use it directly, for them to be able to choose what do they want in the home. Then that is backed up by the installer's handbook, which tells you if the consumer has told you they want communications, they want entertainment, they want security, then in the installer's handbook we tell you what the Code of Practice dictates must be the absolute minimum. And that's the key, is that we're saying to the consumer, if you sign up to this Code of Practice, if you work to this Code of Practice, you're going to get a minimum cabling platform. That doesn't say that you can actually increase what you want to do. A quick example of the different documents that are available, and these are available, by the way, on a website. They are freely available, which is the Quick Guide to Smart Wired, the Code of Practice itself, which sits in the middle of the slide, and on the right-hand side, the installer's cabling handbook. To download them, you can go to the Smart Wired House website, and then you can access those. To download the Quick Guide, anyone can do that anytime. To download the other ones, you need to register only because as we update, we want to be able to provide you with the latest version to ensure you're up to date. So if you actually open this document, what do you find? You find that for communications, we'll move on, we have cabling for telephone and internet services in every living area and a wireless access point. It's scary. Wireless access point. We can't do without our wireless. So in a smart wired home, we want wireless. We want wired for those things which are critical. We want wiring for those things which require high-speed, reliable, secure services. We need mobile for those devices that require the mobility. So we need both. What we're stating here is that we need a minimum of 2 outlets and an associated cabling installed in every living area. And if we just go into the next slide, we are defining the living areas as seen in this picture, which is predominantly where people just live and occupy or spend the majority of their time. So this is what we're saying, a minimum of 2 outlets. And in the Code of Practice will specify an RJ45, and we're specifying Cat6 cabling today. We're also specifying that that has to be star wired. If we then go into entertainment, in entertainment, we're talking about cabling for free-to-air and pay TV services in every living area as well. Again, a minimum of 2 outlets, and associated cabling must be installed per living area for television, free-to-air and pay TV. We know that the NBN's coming. IP is pervasive, but free-to-air still has a long, long way to go. So we still need our coax cable. So we're going to specify coax cabling. Hence, on the next picture, you'll see that's why the round circle. You see, that's your coax outlets for those of you who want to be technical. Again, in the main living areas. That doesn't mean, by the way, that householders may require more to be installed. But this is what we're saying is the minimum to comply with. We then move on to the energy management. And in energy management, there have been quite a lot of developments. And one of the biggest is the introduction of what they call demand-side management, which is trying to control your air conditioning, your hot water system, and your pool pump. Your utility wants to be able to engage with your house, so at times when there's high demand for power, they can actually signal to your pool pump that, you know, it's 40 degrees in the shade right now, everyone's got air conditioning on, I think your pool pump can actually go off for a couple of hours because that'll take the demand. Or potentially talk to your air conditioning saying, instead of running it at 18 degrees, we could run it at 20 degrees and reduce the power consumption. Or stop your hot water system from cutting in at that particular moment, okay, because it can be heated later on. So what we're doing, if we go to the next slide, is requiring an RJ45 to be installed near the pool pump, the air conditioning, the hot water system, and one next to the electrical switchboard. So ultimately we can actually get communications from your true smart meter, not just one that it looks sophisticated, but one that can actually talk to your devices and communicate. And there's a standard called AS4755 that actually specifies, there's even, by the way, the concept of using relays for controlling some of this, because it's universally easily accessible. We're also showing an outlet in the kitchen area because you might want to be able to monitor what your use is of your energy, and therefore that might be integrated as we move forward. So we look at communications, RJ45s installed star-wired. We looked at entertainment, coax installed star-wired. We looked at energy management, RJ45s and Cat6 installed star-wired. And now we go into security. And security, again, we're talking about cabling for a back-to-base security system to be installed, which has smoke detectors installed and function and capable of installing CCTV camera in the front door. So this is what we're saying as the absolute minimum requirements. In addition to that, we're saying sufficient movement sensors to detect an intrusion in the home, plus a code pad in the front door. So if we just go to the next slide, you'll see, okay, I can have a code pad in the front door, I can have three movement sensors and a couple of smoke detectors, and I comply. That's not to say that you might decide, in speaking with the homeowner, to actually say, well, we could put smoke detectors in the kids' rooms. We could put movement sensors in the kids' room, by the way, which could then detect when they're not in the room anymore and turn the lights off for the first time in their lives. Okay? Can I just tell you, I've got those, but they don't always work. Kids have worked out, they just press a button and again and again and again. Lights are always on. But we can provide the infrastructure. We can't control kids' behaviors. So you've got your communications, your entertainment, your energy management, your security, and then what about in the future? Or what about if you need to have someone at home that needs access to medical services, that's had major operation, that it's going through treatment? So again, we're talking about cabling for medical services to be connected to the internet in addition to meeting the requirements for communications and security services detailed above. And again, we're talking about data outlets and associated cabling must be installed to allow for the installation of wireless access points. So we actually have to have a wireless access point. Now again, this is the minimum. A lot of the monitoring devices tend to work wirelessly because they're very low data rate. But in addition to that, we've already installed communications cabling which will communicate or connect to your high-definition television, where you can have a camera and therefore talk to your GP using high-definition video images, which is critical. So what we're talking about is ensuring that there's a RJ45 for a wireless access point, and if you know, it's somewhere in the middle of the house. The optimum location for a wireless access point is somewhere in the middle of a house, depending on the size. As you get bigger, then you might need more cabling and more access points. But at least in a 3-bedroom home, you'd have one in the middle. So we've got all those elements slowly building, and as you notice, predominantly what we're doing is we're running coax and RJ45. So, I should say twisted pair and coax onto RJ45s. And then we go into the actual agent-assisted living part, and here we're going, okay, you're living in a house for longer, you probably don't have the mobility you used to have, so we need to provide cabling to allow for an intercom in the front door. We need to have emergency call buttons. And by the way, the idea is to provide the cabling. So you might have the cabling marked in plans where people can access it later on. So you don't have to have everything fitted out. You may simply put the cabling to allow for future expansion or use at a later point in time. Again, the code of practice outlines that for you. And here we are. We have cabling to be provided for an intercom, and you can see at the front door another RJ45. So what we're doing is increasing the amount of RJ45s ensuring that we can actually plug whatever we need to in whatever location to provide the services needed to support the people living in the home. And then you get to the one that's probably the bigger ticket item, in particular today's technology, but given that things are moving towards the IP, and you've got the likes of KNX, which are now starting to become sort of a more universal language, we're going to see probably more and more increases. We're saying, well, if someone wants automation in the home, the code of practice at the moment says you might have at least one light and one power point being able to be managed. In other words, the wiring has to be in place to allow for the management of those devices in each living area. So again, on our slide, we can see that we're showing one power point, one light fitting, and of course they're in the center of the room at the moment. That's not where you're going to locate them. It's just to show you a minimum of. It's what the code says. Talk to your client though. Give them what they want. But what you can say is, by the way, this is what the minimum requirement is if you want your house to be shown as being compliant with the code. I should mention, to be compliant with the code, the minimum 2 services you must supply are communications and entertainment. The rest are optional depending on what the consumer wants, because we don't want to oversell for the sake of overselling, but we want to guide people to what the best options are. And of course, now we've got the electric vehicle, which is an update that we've done recently to this on the 2013 Code of Practice, because the electric vehicle is starting to come in and does require, and the standard calls for a minimum of 32 amp circuit and one RJ45. Not only do we want to connect the vehicle to charge it, we want to talk to the vehicle, because maybe we don't want the vehicle to be charging at a particular point in time for controlling demand. Or it could be that under emergencies we can talk to the vehicle and say, we need to use your power to support some of the digital home, the health services, or whatever equipment you've got there which are critical. There's a set of batteries sitting in your garage. Use it both ways. And again, this is evolving. But this standard meets the standards that are set out for the deployment of electric vehicles. So if you've actually done, and you've actually put this cabling platform out, the question is, well, how do you actually state to the consumer that you comply? And compliance with the Code of Practice is, A, install a minimum of outlets and cabling as per the Code of Practice. The minimum, as I said before, is communications and entertainment. You must hold an open registration. You must have the endorsements for structured and coax, as these are all cabling systems that are being put in there. We strongly recommend that you must test the installation. The installation testing that's required by the handbook at the moment is primarily wire mapping and some DC testing. There is an encroachment for further testing on the RF cabling, the coax, and again that's spelled out. The testing we would recommend should actually be elevated above that, but the minimum you need to do to actually sign off on compliance is what's shown in the handbook. You must document the installation so people know where things are, and you must install a compliance label, which must be included in the home distributor. And on the following slide, now that you see, this is the compliance label that you have to put in the home distributor so the homeowner can have confidence and contact the person that did the job. So if anyone goes in there and says this is compliant, they should find at least the minimum number of outlets and connections and cables. So we know that the industry is moving. The home networking is growing. The amount of cabling going into the home is growing. In an essence, it's becoming more homogenized because now we've got RJ45s and F connectors throughout, star wire throughout the home. So the question is, how can we get this message out to consumers? So the industry has been working. So the International Copper Association, which has developed the Smart Wire program in conjunction with NECA and other partners, have continued to work, and we have now created what is known as the Registered Cablers website. This website is designed for you as cabling providers to consumers to exploit. This is your reference point to be able to come back when you say to a consumer, we can tell you what your options are, particularly as the NBN is rolling out. So if the NBN is rolling out, what can you do? Well, if we just move on to the next slide, in this particular website, we're saying to consumers, Mr. Consumer, you can do a little, you can do more, or you can do the lot. The important thing, though, is that this is the industry telling the consumer what things they can do. What are the considerations? So when you promote your services to the end user, you can use this as a reference site to say to them, look, this is what the industry is saying, and I'm giving you the same information. What I can do for you is I can make it a reality. So you please feel free to use this. And this website will be starting to be promoted shortly through NECA and their partners. But to give you an idea of the penetration we've had with this, on the next page, we've got the amount of players that are involved in the creation of this website. So as you can see, you've got NECA, they've got the main, all the 5 registrars, which are the cable registrars for the open or restricted registration. But on top of that, we've got the Department of Broadband, which is still called DBCD, I think, today. It probably changed. NBN Co, ACAN, which is the people representing the consumer, Telstra, Optus, Primus. So as you can see, there's a significant backing of all the major players that have come to creating this website. So therefore, the message is the one that actually the industry is putting forward, which you can use to actually improve your business. On this website later on, and you'll get information as we go forward from NECA, it'll have how to access it, and then it'll have marketing material which we are putting together for you, so the industry is putting together so you can use it to extend and expand your business and take advantage of what's going on out there. So in conclusion, what is Smart Wired? Smart Wired really is about smart about the wiring. Get the cabling right. If you got the cabling right, lots of things you can do. If you don't have the wires there, sure, there's backup options, and by the way, they're all spelled out in the Registered Cabler's website, and there's lots of information, but you can't beat the reliability, security of a wired solution. Use the cabling platform created by the Smart Wired Code of Practice. Ensure you comply with it, and more importantly, access the material that the industry is putting together to work with you. Are there any questions? Okay, everyone, the only comment is it's good, which we appreciate. Thanks for that. Well, if there are no further questions, I hope you find this informative. We've obviously not dwelt on it. For more information, feel free to go to the Smart Wired House website. If you have trouble remembering that website, you can go to the NECA website. On the home page, scroll down, and you'll see a big logo with Code of Practice, and it'll give you access to the information you need. I hope that's will get you up and running, okay? And also, by the way, that obviously the information will be sent out to you from NECA, okay? So there will be information and brochures sent out, okay, to support all this, to help you take full advantage of the opportunity that's being created by Smart Wired in partnership with NECA. We've got some questions. Oh.
Gary, put this up on our website, NSW, John.
Yeah, can we put the Smart Wired?
Of course.
Yes, yeah, the Smart Wired website actually is on, sorry, the link to the Smart website is actually on the NECA website, on your home page.
And we'll give you this presentation and put on your website.
Yep, and we will pass this presentation to pass on, so we can put it in the International Copyright Association website as well. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much, and I hope this is useful, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. Goodbye.